The stories of devotees are always very inspiring. Today, let us look at an outstanding devotee story whose name is Murthi Nayanar. He belonged to a place in Tamil Nadu, and at a time, this was long, long ago, and at a time when people were fighting among each other, people had created their own gods. Some group of people called their god as Shiva. Some group of people called their god as Vishnu. And they were fighting this battle as to who is superior. Isn't this what is happening even in today's world? Now people call gods with so many different names. They make religions, then they keep fighting as to whose god is better. Isn't this total stupidity? But the stupidity is not new at all. This has always been there, and it was prevailing during Murthi Nayanar's time. So, Murthi Nayanar himself was born into a Brahmin family who were Shaivites. So, naturally, from his childhood, he developed attachment towards Shiva as God. God does not bother how you worship him, using what religion and what name. God doesn't care, because everything is God. Doesn't matter. He used to worship Shiva. So, as he grew up, he was a poor Brahmin, and he used to be a pujari or the priest at a very small temple. And he was very, very attached to his worship. So every day he would go and worship the Shivalinga. Shivalinga is the form of Shiva, the stone. He used to worship it by pouring all kinds of liquids on it, like milk and honey. He used to perform abhisheka on a daily basis. And it was said in the scriptures that to perform abhisheka, you start with gandha or the sandalwood paste, which is fragrant. So that is how you start abhisheka. That first you wash the Shivalinga with a paste of sandalwood, a fragrant sandalwood paste, and then you continue your abhisheka with milk and curd and fruits and everything else, water. But the beginning of it starts with gandha or sandalwood paste. So every day he used to go about this ritual very religiously. He was very attached. He used to believe in God truly. He used to believe that linga which he is seeing, that itself is God, and he used to worship every day. But he was in a region where the king was a Vaishnavite who is from the other religion or thinking his God is different and is better. So obviously when the government or the king themselves are propagating a religion, they will try to suppress every other religion and every other form of worship. So eventually the government passed an order that since the government takes a stand that Vishnu is the supreme entity and God, Vishnu in Hinduism is the sustainer, whereas Shiva in Hinduism is the destroyer. Both are the aspects of same God. God is the one who creates, sustains and destroys. So, the government puts a ban that no one should be worshipping Shiva. No one should be worshipping Shivalinga in any temple, because the government is Vaishnavite and they want only Vaishnavism to spread in the region. Unfortunately, Murthi Nayanar was staying in that kind of a region. So, they said you cannot worship Shiva, but Murthi Nayanar did not care. He still every day used to go and worship the Shivalinga. First he would apply the sandal paste and wash it away, then with other liquids. So government realized that their ban order is not working. The king realized that the ban order is not working. Despite we banning the worship of Shiva, people are still worshipping Shiva. So the king, advised by his ministers, thinks of a master plan. How do we really stop Shiva worship or Shaivism? How do we destroy it? They devise a plan that let us make sure that the sandalwood paste or gandha is not even available in the market. So no one would be able to procure it. So no one would be able to even start the Shiva Abhisheka. So they cut off all the supply chain. So they make it illegal to sell sandalwood paste, illegal to import it into the region, and eventually within a few weeks there is no more stock of sandalwood paste in the market. No shopkeeper, no vendor is able to sell. Eventually in a couple of weeks Murthi Nayanar's stock of sandalwood paste gets over and he goes to the market to get more. And he realizes that he is unable to find sandalwood paste anywhere. He searches and searches markets after markets in the region, but he doesn't find sandalwood paste because now it is illegal to sell it. And he gets frustrated. He is unable to go back home and sleep peacefully. So he just goes back to the temple and just sits there in the morning, and he doesn't have sandalwood paste and he is unable to start the puja. In his mind, he has to worship beginning with the sandalwood paste and he doesn't have that. So how does he perform Abhisheka? He is unable to perform. He is frustrated. He is sitting there next to the Shivalinga at the feet of the Lord. And he is frustrated. He is expressing to the God that, God, what is this? I am your true devotee. I want to worship you in the way I want to worship you. For that I need sandalwood paste, and the markets do not have sandalwood paste. So he just stays in the temple, doesn't go back home. And it's evening. He gets frustrated. He goes again to the market to try, but again he doesn't find any. He comes back to the temple. He just sleeps in the temple, doesn't go back home that night. And again, next day morning, he again goes to the market, doesn't find the paste. He goes back to the temple, doesn't go back to his home. So 2-3 days he just stays in the temple without worshipping, only praying to the Lord, please get me some sandalwood paste somehow. And he is praying to the Lord that you are the God of the universe. Why don't you just arrange a little bit of sandalwood paste for me? You are the one who creates everything, sustains everything, destroys everything. You are the master of the universe. Can't you just procure a handful of sandalwood paste for me? But the God doesn't respond. And after 3-4 days he is frustrated. He has not even taken bath for 3-4 days. Out of frustration, out of desperation, he is not understanding how to worship. He is just sitting next to the idol. And finally after a few days, he realizes that, okay, this God is not speaking to me. This God is not solving my problem. I have to somehow worship. So what do I do? So normally sandalwood paste, how is it extracted? A dried bark of the tree, bark or a piece of the trunk of the tree which is dried, which looks like a piece of wood, that is grinded upon a stone slab by putting little bit of water on the stone slab, so that the wood, when it grinds on the stone slab, slowly becomes paste. That is how sandalwood paste is extracted. And he suddenly realizes that, okay, what is sandalwood? It is just wood, right? It is a piece of wood. It is very costly piece of wood. It is very precious. Isn't my body also just piece of wood? What is this body if the soul leaves the body? If the God leaves this body is also just a piece of wood. Why am I waiting for sandalwood paste? This body, I will use it as wood. And he does the next level act. He pours a little bit of water on the stone slab and starts grinding his elbow on it. He is like, this body is useless. If I am not able to worship the God with this body, what use of is this body? So let me use the body. What is this body but just a piece of wood? Just like every piece of wood will become mud someday, will decompose and become mud. Isn't this body also going to decompose one day? What is the use of this body? Let me use this body. I have even more valuable wood with me. My body is the wood. My bone is the wood. And you can see that elbow bone is directly under the skin. There is no muscle covering it. So he starts grinding his elbow on the stone slab by pouring water. The skin is chafed, then eventually the skin erupts, breaks, and there is blood all over, but he is not stopping. It is painful, but he is not stopping. He's like, I have to keep on grinding my elbow until the bone hits the slab. The white color bone hits the slab, and I will keep on grinding it until my bone becomes a paste, and I will use that as the sandalwood paste, because this body is nothing but just wood. And he starts grinding and grinding and grinding, and eventually hits the bone, and he's grinding his bone, and the bone is slowly becoming a paste, and he wants to use that paste for worship of the Lord, to perform abhisheka, to start the abhisheka. And God is seeing all this. What is God not seeing? You cannot hide from God. You can hide from yourself, not from God. God is seeing this, and God is thinking, what kind of mental fellow is this? Just because there is no sandalwood, he is grinding his elbow and it's blood all over. The skin has given away and the bone is exposed. He is bleeding. He will bleed to death. And he is grinding and grinding voluntarily. And this is where the miracles happen. From that idol, God emerges in human form, in the form of Shiva. And he sees this happening. What is my devotee doing? And God holds his hand and stops him, that enough. Stop it. And Murthi Nayanar sees that God is there in human form, and he stops. And he immediately prays to him and asks him, why are you doing this to me? Why could you not just get me a little bit of sandalwood so that I could worship you? See, you delayed so much, and I had to grind my bone for it. And the Lord says, stop it. He says, okay, I will stop it, but give me some sandalwood paste. Then I will stop this process. See, a true devotee can behave like a child in front of God. God will behave like a father and protect you. If you are not a true devotee, now things are different. But Murthi Nayanar was a true devotee. And God stops him, says that enough is enough. And he says, okay, words are not sufficient. If I am really a true devotee and you are really the true God, give me sandalwood paste. And God says, okay, I will give you sandalwood paste, but not today. Just go back home and sleep peacefully. Tomorrow morning, I will arrange for the sandalwood paste. And Murthi Nayanar does not question, how will you arrange? It is illegal in the country. No, he doesn't debate, because he has complete trust in the God. And he says, okay. And God himself dresses his wound, ties a cloth around it, and says, enough for today, go and sleep peacefully at your home. Tomorrow morning I will set right everything. And Murthi Nayanar completely believes, and now he has a bandage on his arm. God himself has tied. He has, healed him. And can you imagine this level of bhakti or devotion, where God is coming and taking care of you? That's what happens when you completely trust God. Murthi Nayanar goes home and peacefully sleeps. But since he is injured the previous night, sometimes when you are injured, you sleep for a little longer, right? Because of the pain. Murthi Nayanar keeps sleeping. Normally, Murthi Nayanar wakes up early morning, 3:30 a.m. and goes for Abhisheka. But the next day, he is just asleep. And he wakes up late, around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. And that too, he doesn't wake up naturally. He is disturbed with some noises and sounds. So he wakes up. And he hears loud noises and trumpets and drums everywhere outside the house. And he wakes up from his bed and he's like, what is this noise? And he goes out into the street. And in the street, everyone is standing in the street. On the streets, no one is inside their homes. Everyone is standing, and there's a huge, drums and trumpets and procession going on there. And he asks someone, like, what is this? What is happening? What is all this noise? Is someone getting married? Is this a marriage celebration? And they tell him, no, that's not the case. Then he says, what is it? What is all this celebration for? And they tell him, it's not a celebration. The king died last night. He's like, okay. The king has died last night. It was the king who passed this order to stop all the supply chain networks for sandalwood, right? The king has died last night and the king doesn't have any sons. So, according to law, they will release the royal elephant out onto the streets with a garland, and whosoever neck the elephant puts the garland on, he would be declared the king. That is the law. So the whole procession is going on with trumpets and drums, with the royal elephant in the center, and the royal elephant is carrying a garland of flowers. So everyone is very eager to see in whose neck the elephant is going to put the garland. He or she would be declared the king. And Murthi Nayanar, very astonishingly, just standing there and seeing, oh, let us see what happens. And the elephant procession walks and comes in front of his house, and the elephant stops near Murthi Nayanar and bends and bows down to him and puts the garland in Murthi Nayanar's neck. Can you imagine this? Huh? Murthi Nayanar is the king of the country now, the king of the region. You see how God acts? God did not just give you a pound of sandalwood paste. He has made you the king. And immediately Murthi Nayanar, the first thing he orders is, he says, as the king, I am taking off the ban on Shiva worship. People can worship Shiva, people can worship Vishnu, people can worship anyone. And the crowning ceremony happens. Murthi Nayanar is declared the king. He is made to sit on the throne. But Murthi Nayanar doesn't wear jewelry, doesn't wear a mukut or a crown. Instead, Murthi Nayanar smears himself full of ashes and with rudrakshas. Rudraksha is the sacred beads of Shiva. He wears rudrakshas on his head, on his chest, and he rules the kingdom like that as a true devotee. He never considers himself the king. He understood God's intention. God did not just give him just a sample of sandalwood paste for worship, but he has granted you the power to worship, to power, the grace to make everyone free of the shackles of politics and religion. And Murthi Nayanar successfully rules the whole region until his death. And the kingdom is very happy. Everyone could worship whichever god they wanted in whichever form. Can you see? And immediately Murthi Nayanar sanctions budget for reconstruction and reopening of all temples, not just Shiva temples. Every temple is glorified. Everyone is given the freedom to worship the way they want. And again, sandalwood paste ban is gone. And everyone is happily worshipping the Lord the way they want. Can you see God's grace for a true devotee? When you are a true devotee, that is how God acts. The story is very emotional, but that is how Bhakti is. The marga of jnana or knowledge is about dispassion, vairagya, whereas the marga of bhakti is passion. But passion towards what? Not towards life. Passion towards God. When you have that level of passion towards God, God will come down to you in whatever form you worship. He came as Shiva because Murthi Nayanar saw God as Shiva. You see God as Allah, you see God as Jesus, God will come down to you the way you worship Him. But your devotion has to be true. Until the next story, until the next time, see you guys. Bye-bye.